Sir Keir Starmer said in his press conference last week that those who want a national inquiry are jumping on the far-right bandwagon. Well, 76% of the country want a national inquiry. Does that mean that 76% of the country are far-right?
And this is relative to the rest of the world, a relatively leftist country, isn't it? I mean, particularly compared to the US, particularly compared to places like South Korea at the moment, it's quite far on the right. People in England really, compared to America, they're quite lefty. The idea that 70% could be like far right-wing bigots is absurd.
Well, it's obviously absurd that according to these people, everyone's bloody far right. As long as I've been covering the grooming gang story, there's always people coming out in the comments saying far right, far right, far right. I'm sure you've been called far right for something or other. It's lost all meaning, that term. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I saw a great video. I don't know who it was by, but it was sort of showing the way that the people who are very far on the left and the people who are very far on the right, often quite authoritarian, don't seem to understand there's actually a centre. So those people on the far left will just say anything right of them is far right. People on the far right would say anything left of them is woke and far left. And a lot of us are just trying to say, well, hang on, we're not calling for like murder of anyone who's different from us or races or anything like that. But we do want to have an inquiry and actually, find out what's actually happening with the grooming scandal.
You have to have an inquiry. I mean, Jess Phillips, ironically called our safeguarding minister, was the one who didn't want an inquiry into. Who turned down? It took 4 months to turn down the people of Oldham's request for a local inquiry carried out by Oldham, an inquiry into what was going on at Oldham. Oldham had an inquiry published in 2022, which did state that the young girls had been neglected and let down, but there was no evidence of any sort of cover-up. Now, you can't have the people who were accused of a crime or any wrongdoing be in charge of the own inquiry into the problem, obviously, not least as one of the members of Oldham Council has been charged with being one of the grooming gang perpetrators.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. So we need to have a national inquiry. The GB News have found that this is going on in at least 50 towns and cities up and down the country. And look, we can talk about inquiry. Ultimately, what we need is justice and redemption, and for the girls, I mean.
Absolutely.
And that's the priority. And I think to get that, there needs to be an inquiry, and then we need to talk seriously about the punishment for the perpetrators. This cannot happen again.
Jess Phillips is an interesting one because Elon Musk called her, what was it, a genocidal rape defender or something like that.
Gang apologist.
Yeah, and I thought, I didn't like that. And then I thought...
Okay. No, I think he said genocide apologist.
Yes,
by the way, she has said several times on Twitter. You could just find it.
I was a bit like, you can't call someone that. She's trying to do a job. It's a difficult job. I don't agree with how she's done it, but it's not an easy position. I think we do have to remember that we have to humanize people. These are politicians, they're real people. She goes around actually, and she made the point of, I've sat there with victims of this. I've tried, and I think she's trying to do her best. And I don't think she's going about it the right way, but she's trying to do her best. You can't be calling her that. And then I saw, as you're pointing out, she's called countless people exactly the same thing.
Well, when the Christmas mass raids were happening in Germany, I forget what year, but I think it was mainly in Cologne, she went on Question Time and said, it looks like Birmingham on a night out, or on a Saturday night or something. And she's also, her constituency, I think is predominantly Asian Muslim. Yeah. So she and we remember the footage of her getting heckled when she won in the election in July. So she's playing all sorts of weird games.
Yeah, but imagine she is your friend.
She was interviewed after, again by Beth Rigby. Beth Rigby, who then did a whole article, poor old Jess Phillips. Where are these people? Have they been really covering it's as if Jess Phillips is the real story here. No, it's the bloody grooming gangs. Yeah. It's total moral inversion. These people have not. You can search on Twitter if you go to people's profiles and see how many times they've tweeted about grooming gangs. All of this lot, they haven't. Now, it might be the case that they here and there have mentioned it on their podcast, but if you look up John Sopel, Emily Maitlis, Lewis Goodall, Alistair Campbell, Rory Stewart, the so-called centrist dads, how much did they actually care about these issues? They never ever once tweeted about this stuff.
It's pathetic.
And you can't be a journalist. What journalists worth their salt
Yeah.
have not covered the most heinous, horrific child sexual abuse scandal in our nation's history? If you have not covered it, then you're a disgrace, actually, frankly.